Greetings, ship familia. Welcome back to the latinXfactor Sharpening Your Professional Edge program. I'm Dr. Dora Renaud, Senior Director of Academic Programs for SHPE National. Tonight is our fifth webinar, Transforming Your Failures into Success, Becoming an Effective Problem Solver, which focuses on strategies to critically reflect in order to transform failure into success. Our presenter today is our very own Fernando Ceballos, who currently serves as the SHPE Region 5 Vice President overseeing 7 states and roughly 3,000 members. He served multiple roles in other nonprofits, such as the American Society of Civil Engineers and the Hispanic Scholarship Fund. Fernando was recently named one of the 2017 Coors Light Líderes, 2018 ACE's New Faces of Civil Engineering, and featured in the 2018 Class of Dallas Weekly's Millennials to Watch. As a project engineer for Pap Dawson Engineers, he works on commercial land development projects throughout the state of Texas as a licensed professional engineer. So without further ado, I'll pass over the mic to our featured speaker, Mr. Fernando Ceballos.
Thank you, Dora, and thank you for SHPE National for the opportunity to talk about this particular topic that is really important just for our SHPE members to be able to hear, and then for me just to be able to share some of the things that I've learned along the way and some of the failures that I've come across. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started into the presentation. Some of the learning objectives, some of the key things that I want people to take from this presentation is to learn how to reflect and transform failure into success, how to analyze past and future failures, and how to reflect on key milestones. And so before we get started, what I wanted to do was kind of get on the same page as far as defining what the word failure means. I think many times people have a difficult time as far as understanding what failure really is. And I think from a lot of times, it ends up being whatever we define a failure. And I think it's important to know that as far as what the failure looks like, because typically we are not able to say what a failure is unless we're able to define what success looks like. So when I looked up the word failure on a dictionary and online, these are some of the things that came up: a lack of success, an unsuccessful person, enterprise, or thing, the omission of expected or required action, and the action or state of not functioning. And so again, these are some of the things that the world, the dictionary, what other people are defining as failure. But as we go through the presentation, we're going to be talking about what really dictates a failure and when you can categorize that. So types of failures. Based on what I found and based on the way I like to talk about failure, there's 4 different types of failures. One of them is the lifestyle failure. This is when we talk about our health, our weight loss, the way we look, our physical appearance, our financial standing. Sometimes there's certain financial goals that we want to hit and we struggle with being able to hit those, whether that be our salary, whether that be what our 401k looks like, or what our savings looks like. I know sometimes people look at the lack of opportunities to go on vacation as failures. So again, those are categorized as lifestyle failures. Some common failures is messing up on our presentation. You know, some of the things that I'm going to mess up today on, I would categorize as a failure: stuttering a word or forgetting a word that I wanted to say. Again, those are the common failures. Forgetting a meeting, calling someone by a wrong name. Then we get into the predicted failures, testing out the bugs in a system. Those of you who do computer science or computer hardware, or computer coding would be able to understand what I mean by that. I think a lot of us kind of get the lingo as far as what the bugs are, but again, this is you're taking something to intentionally to failure. So for those of you who I guess work out or have an understanding of what weight loss or what weightlifting looks like, sometimes you take your muscles to failure, right? So those are some of the things that you would be taking to a predicted failure. Then you have the glorious failures, the failing epically even after giving it your all. And this is one of those that I wanted to share with you all. Recently, in the last 2 years, I was finally in a place in my career where I was eligible to take my PE test. That's the professional engineering license exam. And so after studying for 2 to 3 hours every single day for 2 or 3 months, I took the test a year early of when I wanted to take it. And so I took the test, and when I got the results back, I got a 69 on the test. Come and find out that I missed the test by one question. Now, the difficult part about all of that was when I walked out of that test, I knew exactly what 2 questions I had missed that were going to be the ones that were going to dictate whether or not I passed. And I remember walking out of there and just saying, oh crap, I forgot to divide by 2. And in this other question, I circled the wrong one or something along those lines. But again, it was extremely difficult knowing that I had sacrificed so much time and sacrificed, my image, my personal brand on wanting to push people to be better people, and then come and find out that I failed my PE test. So that was definitely one of those that I would classify as a glorious failure. But again, it was what I did after finding out the results is what really dictates who you are. So again, we're going to be talking about some of the things that you can do after finding out about some of these failures that you go through, and what you can really do to hone in on what you're trying to achieve. So some of the limiting habits, some of the things that stop you from being able to overcome some of these failures that you go through. And so some of these habits that people have are blaming others, right? This could be, feeling entitled. This could be playing the victim, loafing around, just kind of waiting around for things just to happen on their own. I think sometimes we go through different failures in life and we just expect things to get better, but we really don't take action on changing that things. Becoming envious of other success, a little self-explanatory there. Minimizing others. I think sometimes we try to make ourselves bigger by pushing other people down. Talking a big game. So many times we have plenty of people who say, oh yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and they end up not really doing much. So again, these are some of the habits that limit you from being successful. Making assumptions, procrastinating, being distracted, and quitting. And I think that's one of the biggest habits that people have sometimes. Is I could have easily, I'm going to go back to that PE example several times throughout this presentation. And so quitting, I could have easily said, you know what, I wasn't made to be a licensed professional engineer. Being a PE isn't something I'm really passionate about. I could have easily said, this is not for me. And so again, I oftentimes see people just quit really early on and say, well, that wasn't for me, so it's completely okay the fact that I wasn't successful. And so again, that's a really bad habit to have. You have to see it through. And again, we're going to go through some exercises here as far as what you can do to overcome that. So now we're going to go on to a poll question. So for those of you who are watching the webinar, please pay attention to your screen. Dora, if you could please assist us in getting this poll going.
We've got about 60% participating. Still going. About 20 more seconds. Got 83% that voted so far, so let's go ahead and close it. 85%. And we're going to share it. There are the results.
Awesome. So the majority of the people who voted, their response was, yeah. The question was, have I fallen trapped into a bad habit? And most of the responses were yes, and I am working towards getting out of it. We had 2% of people say, no, I overcame these bad habits. So kudos to you for kudos to you all for being able to overcome those bad habits, and again, stay consistent. And the other 34% of people said yes, and I don't know how to get out of it. I'm really hoping that this presentation is going to help you all being able to learn some techniques, some exercises on things that you can work on ensuring that, again, you're working in the right direction on overcoming these bad habits. And for those of you who are working towards getting out of it, again, just to stay consistent. And if you guys, again, I wanted to remind you all, if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to jump in the chat or jump in the questions section and ask those questions. And towards the end, we'll take some time to answer those. So steps to overcome failure. Step number one here is know your why. I think oftentimes people know what they do and how they do it, but they don't know why they do certain things. And this is something that has been pushed by Simon Sinek, who wrote the book Start With Why. And so this particular idea and framework is called the Golden Circle. And it's important to know why you do what you do and what's the purpose of it. And so when I go back to thinking about the PE test, what was it that I was trying to do? Well, I wanted to pass the PE test, and what do I do? Well, I'm an engineer. How do I do it? Well, I apply the things that I learned in school. I apply the things that they teach me in at work, and I do my job and I do my duties. But the real question is why, and that's really what pushed me on making sure that I buckled down and said, you know what, I failed the test by a single question. Excuse me, I failed the test by a single question, but I want to do everything possible to take that test again and pass it. And so for me, my why is, how do I make the world a better place? How do I ensure that the communities that I'm trying to build through my engineering work are being empowered to make a difference in their own lives? How am I making sure that the communities that I'm working with through SHPE, through AACE, through the Real Estate Council, how do I empower them? And so again, that was my why, and also my family, right? Knowing that the work that I was going to do and the work that was going to help me, the work that I was going to be able to do once I got my license, that was going to push me to give me more of an opportunity to make a difference. So again, knowing that why is a really good exercise for you all to do to really help you push you when you're having difficult times. The other step here is change your point of view. I think oftentimes, I mentioned it earlier, the bad habits is playing victim or feeling entitled. And in this example here is changing your point of view. We have a gentleman at the top left corner of this slide who happens to be in a patio in a wheelchair, and he's looking at this person going to work. And then the following slide here, we have a person who's going to work thinking about, man, if only I had a bike. Right? I wish I didn't have to walk to work. And then the following person is thinking about, man, if only I had a car and I wasn't struggling having to go on a bike to work. And then so on and so forth. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but at the end of the day, no matter what you're going through, no matter what failure you feel like you're going through, there's always someone ahead of you that you think is a success, who's also struggling with their own failures, who's also struggling with their own insecurities. So it's important to really ground yourself and change your point of view and see it from the other side. You know, maybe the thing that you're going through isn't really that big of a deal, and it's something that you just have to work through to get better and overcome it. And one of the quotes that I often, go back to when I compare myself to my peers sometimes, unfortunately, or when I look at other people, is don't compare your chapter 1 to someone's chapter 20. And I think oftentimes we try to say, well, I wish I was there, or this person's there and they're younger than me, or whatever the case is. You have to, again, that's a bad habit, but you have to change your point of view in being able to say, well, this thing that I just went through, what would it look like if I was on the other side? And once I overcome it, what is that going to look like? And so again, step number 3 here is accept how you feel. Some of these questions that you can ask yourself is, one thing I can learn from this. What is it that you can learn from the fact that you're going through this failure? So for me, it was the way I was studying wasn't the best way. So I changed my studying habits on trying to study a different way, and finding an accountability group to help me, find different ways to study for my PE test. How can I adjust to avoid making some same mistake? I didn't go through the same process of the way I studied the first time. I changed things the second time. What can I do different next time, right? These are the questions that are going to help you really start changing your perspective, changing your point of view on the failure that you're going through. But the biggest thing here is accepting how you feel and just being able to come to terms with the fact that you don't feel the best and you feel a little bit defeated at the moment in time. Uh, Next step here is realize you're not a failure because of a setback. Oftentimes, statistics say that fear is the #1 barrier to success for most people, and this is usually driven by being humiliated by an experience, scared of an unknown outcome, or overwhelmed by the risk. And so this image here, this diagram that, or the picture that we have here is someone giving up, right? Just shy, maybe 2 or 3 hits shy of hitting diamonds. And I think, again, based on these points here, sometimes we feel humiliated because we don't know how long this person's been in that tunnel trying to dig for these diamonds. Maybe he's been telling people for the last couple of years, oh, I'm going to hit it, I'm going to hit it, I'm going to hit it. And they just gave up and they just took it as a failure because they'd never really hitched that diamond. Scared of the unknown, maybe they were scared that they were going to be trying to dig for these diamonds for the rest of their lives. But again, this picture here is a really good illustration on sometimes we give up really early and we classify ourselves a failure just because we have a few setbacks. So it's an important reminder to say, I'm not a failure, these are just simple setbacks and I'm moving forward in the right direction. And so when we are moving forward in the right direction, it's really important to be constructive and learn from the situation. So some of the exercises that you can do as you're going forward and just overcoming and realizing that again, these are simply just setbacks, is to reframe, to find confidence in the mistake that you just made. So you have to just reframe it, change that point of view. Another really good exercise is a worst case scenario. This was first introduced, or maybe not first introduced, but I came to find out about the worst case scenario exercise through the 4-hour work week by Tim Ferriss. And so what he recommends is that you write down the worst case scenario. And if the worst case scenario, so for example, let's say that the example that he gave in his book is he wanted to travel abroad even while he was running his full-time company. And his worst case scenario was, what if everything goes haywire? The IRS sends me a letter and I'm not able to see it. I have a few problems in my company and they're not able to fix them. I just missed the mail. Okay, well, what are the steps? I can hire a virtual assistant to help me with managing my personnel. I can forward all of my mail to an assistant that can check that mail and tell me if there's anything that's coming up from the IRS. And I'm going to empower my employees to make a $200 decision without having to talk with me. So those are the steps that you fix it. The likely scenarios if decision is made. And so if he were to move forward with going abroad to while working his business, what are the scenarios that could possibly happen, right? He can be very happy. He can find really great relationships while going abroad. He can find new inspiration to bring back to his business. Again, those are some examples. What is it costing me or costing you to postpone? So again, the next step here is this worst case scenario is, what is it costing him, both from a positive notion and also from a negative point of view. And so if he doesn't go to study to abroad, if he doesn't go abroad for his business, he runs the risk of being overcome by depression and anxiety, and eventually just giving up on the business altogether. So the worst case scenario isn't really that worst case of a scenario because everything can just go away in the blink of an eye. And so again, this is one of those exercises that you can do to really ask yourself, what are you waiting for, right, to overcome this failure that you go through. And the last one here is this visioning. Oftentimes, or some of you may have heard of vision boards, and so those are really important too. Some of the categories that you can add to a vision board to really help you define on what you're trying to achieve, to help you set clear and smart goals is family, career, health goals, relationship goals, sports, home, financial goals, and so on and so forth that you guys can see here. But again, having a vision board is very powerful because it helps you visualize on a day-to-day on what it is that you're trying to achieve, and it reminds you on the importance of why you're moving forward on wanting to overcome this failure. And so we have to remember that anyone who wants to do things of value in life will fail. And these are some of the I guess the famous people that we often see online. We often see memes and videos on trying to push us and inspire us on the things that the people overcame. And for those of you who don't know, for example, Michael Jordan, he's famous for one of his quotes is he missed 9,000 shots in his career. He lost over 300 games, and he missed the game-winning shot 26 times. And so again, everybody knows him as one of the best, if not the best, basketball player of all time. But these are some of the statistics that he went through. Jack Ma, he is the founder of Alibaba, but he actually failed 3 entrance exams and trying to get into college. He was rejected by Harvard 10 times. He, on his first time taking the entrance exam to college, got a 1 out of 120 points. He was rejected by over 30 jobs. He was the only one. So when he applied to KFC, out of 24 applicants, 23 people got a job. So he was the only one who did not get a job at KFC. He applied to become a police officer and he was rejected. He was the only one rejected from the 5 applicants who applied. And so right now at this moment in time, Jack Ma's net worth is $35.6 billion. And again, he's the founder of Alibaba, but you look at all of these failures, you'd be surprised that someone with all of these a long list of resume of failures would be able to achieve this. But again, it's just a reminder that even after us going through a lot of different things, we can still overcome. Down the bottom right here, we have Sylvia Acevedo. She grew up poor. She was in a part of a family who lived paycheck to paycheck, paycheck to paycheck. Her sister, came down with meningitis back when she was a young child, and so this really affected their family. But she didn't really allow the fact that her sister came down with the sickness, the issues that she had with her father, to really affect her. And so she was able to slowly but surely get involved with the Girl Scouts, and right now she currently serves as the CEO of the Girl Scouts of America. And then we also have Ellen Ochoa here, which was the first Hispanic woman in space. She was also the director at the Johnson Space Center, and she got a bachelor's in physics from San Diego State University and a master's and a PhD from electrical engineering from Stanford. And again, very famous Thomas Edison failed thousands of times on trying to design the light bulb. And after all said and done, he had over a thousand patents to his name. But again, it's just a reminder that even some of the most famous people that we know in the history of mankind have really gone through a lot of failures, but they haven't allowed those setbacks to really classify them as a failure and push them to quit. So a good step here is letting it out and into the light. And so what I really encourage people, and I encouraged myself and I reminded myself of, is when we're going through certain setbacks, it's really important to find an accountability group. And I'm really thankful to have SHPE and to have AACE, because a lot of the people that I'm interacting with, and a lot of the people that I'm is interacting with and living with, is they've gone through similar setbacks, they've gone through similar situations, and so together through accountability, we're able to push ourselves and say, well, this is what I did, this is what I recommend you do. And so it's important to really put it out there and say, hey, I'm owning the fact that I have this setback. I'm owning the fact that I think I'm a failure because of this, and I'm looking for help. But again, it's really it's a good step to take in wanting to overcome that failure and really transform it into success. Another one here is finding inspiration and support from your world. You never know, as you're building these accountability groups, as you're building these friendships, who has the key to the problem that you're going through. And so simple conversations are going to help you, really discover, what people have gone through. And these conversations are going to help you understand what people were thinking as they were going through these setbacks. Oftentimes it isn't a technical question, it isn't something that you can just fix on paper, but it really becomes more of an emotional self-discovery on trying to overcome these failures. So again, these conversations that you're having with people and the people around you is key to help you overcome that. And then we also have books We have videos, we have podcasts. There's plenty of podcasts and videos out there that are really going to help you, find that motivation, find that inspiration to push you past your struggle, because I can assure you that somebody else in this world has gone through a similar setback and has gone through a similar failure, and you're not the first person to go through this, and you're definitely not going to be the last. Again, it's really important for you to find support and inspiration from those around you. And then here another step is moving on and not getting stuck. Developing the keystone habits that will help you move forward. So these are some of the things that you can incorporate into your life on a day-to-day basis. Things that I've currently worked on and I've encouraged other people to really adopt as these habits is reflecting on the day. Every day doesn't have to be a long 30-minute meditation session. It doesn't have to be this hour meditation session, but it could be something as simple as just taking 5 or 10 minutes on thinking about your day, thinking about the things that you're going through, on some of the people that you're interacting with, thinking about the struggles that you're overcoming on a day-to-day basis. We talked about the 4 different types of failures, but it's important not just to get caught up with those glorious failures, but also being thoughtful of and intentional in thinking about those common failures, right? Why is it that I didn't speak up on that meeting earlier today? Am I struggling with my own someone's insecurities, or is it that I'm having a difficult time with somebody at work? And again, it's important to think about those common failures just to really get you meditate and reflect. Excuse me, and reflecting on the things that you're working on, and reflecting on the things that you're trying to get better at. But again, a really good habit to incorporate into your everyday life is just 5 to 10 minutes and meditating or reflecting on the things that you've done. But that could be in the morning, that could be in the afternoon before going to bed. Number 2 here is wake up early, and not just for the sake of it. So there's a lot of studies, there's a lot of books going out there and circling around talking about the importance of waking up at 4:30 in the morning, waking up at 4 in the morning. And I know some people will say, well, I'm not a morning person, or I'm a night owl, and I don't, see the importance of waking up early. And it's not necessarily the time that you're waking up, but it's more the time that you're giving yourself to get your day going. And I'm going to get into a little bit about the whole energy. We talk about time management, but I think it's important to talk about energy management. And so when we think about waking up early, it's important to wake up early to really manage that energy in the morning, to really get things going. Because if you wake up late, cursing the alarm, saying, "Oh, I have to go to work again," or "Crap, I'm running late once again," it's going to trickle down, right? And it's only going to make your day, more stressed and more stressed and more stressed. So it's important to wake up early to be able to, again, reflect on the day that you're going to jump on, and to also think about the things that you're hoping to overcome and the things that you're trying to get done for that day. So again, a good habit to incorporate is waking up early to really get yourself going. Number 3 here is focus on the work you need to do. There's no glory in the hustle. Success lies in focus. There's a really good book out there called The One Thing, and also, I guess, The Power of Habit. But these 2 books really emphasize the importance of just sticking to doing one thing at a time, and also doing the most important tasks in the beginning of the day. And so when you're starting your day, you're waking up early, you're writing the list down of the things that you want to get done. You have to tackle those things first, right? And if there's a really big, again, the focus of this webinar is talking about failure. If there's something that you're really trying to tackle, again, going back to my example of the PE test, every morning I would wake up and say, okay, well, this is going to be my game plan for my PE test. So I would study in the morning. I would make sure that I would fit my calendar or my schedule for that day to ensure that I got all of my studying done in the morning, and then maybe do a practice problems during lunch. And then after work, I would, set some time out to study for the test or more. But it was really important for me to get that thing out of the way in the morning, because it only reemphasized the idea that I was working on trying to overcome that failure, and it was helping me feel accomplished, to feel like I was winning the day because I got the most stressful part of my day done early in the morning, and it was only reassuring me that I was going in the right direction. Number 4 here is show up every day to create momentum. It's very difficult to help you overcome your failures when you're just working on them sporadically. You can't expect to be able to pass a PE test if you're just studying an hour every other week or an hour every other day. It's really important to again show up every day, create that momentum to really get things going in motion. Because again, at the end of the day, if you're not making a commitment and a deliberate step in being intentional in overcoming this, it's going to be very difficult for you to gain momentum to overcome this and make really a success of what you're trying to accomplish. And number 5 here is just embrace failure. We talk about the common failures, we talk about being the intentional failures, but you have to just let failure be part of your life. There's plenty of mistakes that you're going to make every single day. You can't beat yourself up about it. For example, I feel like I'm making a bunch of mistakes as I'm giving this webinar, but I'm not beating myself up in my head about the mistakes that I'm making. I'm just going with the flow and just moving on. And I think it's really important, to really develop that habit of just letting things happen and just moving on, because again, we need to remind ourselves that failure is inevitable, and it's going to continue to happen. And so again, developing that habit of just saying, it is what it is, I'm only going to get better, let's overcome this, is a really good opportunity to get better. And though again, we're showing here the habit loop, the cue, the routine, and the reward. But again, these are 5 keystone habits that are going to really help you gain momentum and be able to stack successes on a day-to-day. Act on your plan right away. You have to start moving. So many times we try to make these perfect plans as far as what we have to do to be successful. But at the end of the day, the hardest hurdle on getting going is just starting. Like for example, for myself, I'll go again back to the PE test. As soon as I got the test result back saying that I failed the test, I came up with a plan, I came up with a study schedule, and I started studying right away, because I knew that if I started procrastinating and I started making excuses for my test and saying, well, I can study later, or I already know the material, I only need to study certain parts, I was not going to be successful on the second time. And so again, it's really important just to get going once you make a plan and move on, and then again course correct as you go. As certain things start hitting your schedule, as certain things start popping up throughout your calendar, it's okay to pivot, it's okay to make adjustments. But the hardest thing here, and just the most important thing here, is just to get started. And again, as you guys can see on this illustration here on the right, oftentimes we think that success is going to be the straight linear path to the finish line, but what you end up finding out that as soon as you start pedaling, you're going to fall in a pit of rocks. And once you get past that, you're going to have to overcome a bridge, and then you're going to fall, and you're going to be swimming with sharks. But life isn't going to be simple. There's going to be plenty of mistakes that you have to go through, and there's going to be plenty of pitfalls that you're going to have to deal with along the way. And another step here is improving your self-esteem. I think this is one of those things that really help you, overcome failures in life. You can't feel defeated, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about this picture here on the right side. At the bottom of this pyramid, we have a person thinking to themselves, "I won't do it. I can't do it. I want to do it. How do I do it? I try to do it. I can do it. I will do it. Yes, I did it." And so it's really important to always use positive words, even when you're thinking to yourself, even when you're talking to yourself. It's really important to build that self-esteem, because building that self-esteem is really going to help you overcome the things that your setbacks that you're going through. You have to find a way to change your story. You can't play a victim all the time. You can't feel like the sense of entitlement that the world owes you success, because the world really doesn't owe owe anybody anything. And so you have to remind yourself that yes, you are capable of doing things. Yes, you are capable of overcoming your failures and overcoming the challenges. And again, this is only a setback. And a really good way to build that self-esteem is simply by empowering other people around you. I'm sure if you look back, there's people who are going through certain struggles that you overcame in the last couple of years. Some of the things that you've maybe been exposed to, and um, maybe it was a difficult challenge in your life or difficult time in your life, and you want to share that knowledge. You want to share the things that you learned along the way. You want to share those things that you learned along the way with other people, and that in itself, and empowering other people and in reminding them on how to do certain things, is going to help you build your self-esteem, because it's really rewarding to know that you're helping other people, and it's also a reminder that you're growing in your career, that you're growing in your own personal development and in your professional development, because it reminds you of where you started. And as you're helping other people, again, it reminds you of who you used to be and who you are now, and it really reaffirms your worth. It reaffirms, what you have to offer to the world. And again, at the end of the day, this is a true reminder of your self-worth, of what you're able to accomplish, and it helps you remember your why. It helps you remember on why you're trying to achieve certain things, and it helps you reflect on everything that you've overcome. And so again, this is just a quick recap of the 10 steps that we've gone through on how to overcome failure. 1, know your why. 2, accept how you feel. 3, realize you are not a failure because of a setback. 4, be constructive and learn from the situation. 5, remember anyone who wants to do things of value in life will fail. 6, let it out into the light. 7, find inspiration and support from your world. 8, move on, don't get stuck, act on your plan right away. And 10, improve your self-esteem. And so we're going to jump into another poll question here to talk about, to kind of get an idea of what you all think about the webinar so far.
Okay, we're launching the poll. Got 30% voted. Still going. %50 voted. 75 and still going. We hit 80%. So let's go ahead and close the polls. And there we go.
Awesome. So it looks like we have a little bit over half of the people. Although common sense, it was helpful to hear this information. And yeah, I think a lot of times this information is things that we're exposed to on social media, as things that we're exposed to in conversation with people, but it really helps in reminding us on how to really push past our failures and push past our setbacks, and ensuring that we're moving in the right direction. 42% of the people said this information was new to me and helpful. I'm really happy to hear that. I'm glad to know that this information is going to be of use for you as you continue to move forward and trying to overcome some of the setbacks that you're experiencing at the time. And 4% of the people said this is not what I was expecting. Hopefully, it wasn't information that you feel like you wasted your time, but that hopefully this is information that is helping you, again, move forward in the right direction, but is this something, maybe it was more, the information provided was more a different format that they were expecting. So again, Dora, we can jump back onto the slides. I really appreciate it, and thank you all for the ones who took the time to vote. Improve, don't try to prove, right? I think it's important for us to remember that we're all a work in progress, and once you achieve a certain goal and you overcome a certain failure and you feel like you get to 100%, you have a new challenge and a new level and a new devil, and we have to start back at 0%. And so no matter what we're trying to do, it's important just to know that we're trying to get better on a day-to-day basis, and we're just trying to work on improving ourselves and not really prove to other people on what we're capable of accomplishing. So final advice, the power of yet. Is oftentimes we say, I'm not here, I'm not there, or I can't do this, or I won't do this, or how can I accomplish this? But using, the power of yet, you know what? I'm not a civil engineer yet. I haven't graduated yet. I haven't lost the weight yet. That in itself reminds you that you're a work in progress. It reminds you that you're moving in the right direction, and it reminds you that you're in pursuit in wanting to find success. So again, incorporate that into your vocabulary, incorporate that into your self-talk. You haven't achieved something yet. Fail forward. As you're going through things, as you're failing, always fail forward. Find the mistakes that you made in the past to help you build stepping stones and help you build keystone habits in trying to get to that next success. So as you're going through things, again, just roll with the punches, gain that momentum, let one failure stack on another failure to help you get to where you're trying to get to. Another one here is be brutally honest. Oftentimes we make mistakes and we go through certain setbacks and we start making excuses for ourselves. We start saying, well, somebody else had it easy, or it wasn't that I wasn't even trying that hard. You have to be completely honest with yourself, and you have to remind yourself that, hey, you know what? Maybe I didn't put in that much effort. Maybe I'm not working to my 100%, and I have to really, pick it up a notch to get the success that I want to find. So again, it's really important for you to be honest with yourself and don't make excuses and just make up lies on why you're not achieving your success. And just finally here is let the frustration out. Sometimes you need to find that accountability just to be able to vent. We all go through stuff. We all go through life happens. And so sometimes we just have to let it out, right? And we have to let people know how we feel. And just the fact of being able to tell people how we feel, whether that be because we're going through failures, culturally. I know Fernando talked about, the things that we go through as Latinos, or just some of the things that we're going through as professionals or as entrepreneurs or business owners. You just have to let it out. And it's important to create that accountability group, create that professional network, that personal network of people who are going to understand you and just be able to listen to you. So again, that's my final piece of advice here is just let it out if you have to let it out, and just find people that are going to support you in helping you get better. So again, focus on the process, not the outcome. Life is a journey, it's not a destination, and so it's important to remember that. And so the call to action here is I want you all to take a screenshot of this. I believe we're going to be sharing these slides with everyone who attended the workshop. But these are some of the questions that I want to encourage you all to ask yourselves. Have I been too hard on myself for a mistake I made? Why can't I just let it out, let it go? There's a really good question that I want you all to ask yourselves. I know some of the people answered the question saying that they're working on certain things. So again, this is a really good question to ask. The second question here is there anything I am playing small on because of a fear of failure? Why am I holding myself back? Another really good question here. And the last one is, do I have people around me that make it easy for me to make excuses? Are they limiting my potential? And this is a really good one. Am I limiting someone? Are you making excuses for yourself? Are those excuses that you're making for yourselves impacting someone's potential to be successful? So again, self-assessment, post-webinar homework, if you will. but good questions for you to ask yourself. And some of these questions you're not going to get answers for in the moment you write them down. Some of these are going to take you hours, some of them are going to take you days, and some of these you're going to write them down, get them started, and then come back to them in a week or two. Because again, they're really deep questions that are going to help you, really discover on the things that you're trying to overcome and some of the things that you're going through. So questions. And again, thank you all for taking the time and jumping in on this webinar.
All righty. So let's see. Andres Nájera. His question is, hello, Fernando. Thank you for sharing your time and experience with us today. I often struggle with procrastination when completing tasks. What advice do you give for combating this bad habit? Side note, will these slides be shared? So we know that. All right.
Yeah, so for me, I'm the laziest disciplined person I know. And what I mean by that is I'll procrastinate very easily because, I by default want to procrastinate. And so what I've done, I've created habits, but I've created routines to help me prevent having to procrastinate. And so what I mean by that is I've disciplined myself to say, I'm going to wake up in the morning. I'm going to make a schedule. I'm going to, these are the 2 or 3 things that I have to knock out. And I give myself a deadline. I almost make it a game and say, I have to finish, XYZ by 9 p.m. at this time. And if I don't, I don't get to do this or that. But also, I help. I've had other people keep me accountable on the things that I'm trying to achieve, and so that's helped me, prevent myself from procrastinating because I want to save face. And as much as I'm trying to push myself and trying to make myself better, I also have a personal mission on wanting to empower other people on being better. And so when I tell other people that I'm trying to encourage, hey, keep me accountable and ask me, did I do my homework or did I study or do I do this? That really helps me on trying to stop from or prevents me from procrastinating. So that's some of my advice that I would say is, again, set routines, make yourself become a little bit more disciplined, and just find ways to either make it a game or find accountability in other people to push you in trying to stop from procrastinating.
Okay. So Gerald Flores wants to know, well, he's saying thanks, but how do you deal with things that are out of your hands?
Out of my what?
Out of your hands, out of your control.
You let it go. I think that's the biggest realization that I had in life. A couple of years ago, there are some things that I felt like it was my obligation to try to make better. But I started, asking myself these questions, and I came to terms with the idea that I didn't have the power to change those things. I didn't have the power to influence those people. I didn't have the power to push a decision in a certain direction. And I just came to terms and I said, you know what? I have to just get over it. Because at the end of the day, if I can't change it, then why am I stressing out about it? And that's really one of those huge emotional, hurdles that we all have to go through as adults or even as kids sometimes. But if it's out of your hands, that in itself is an indication that you've done everything you can, and if it's no longer in your hands, and it's no longer in your hands, and you have to just, let it go.
Okay. Sandra Roman has a really good question. She says, thank you for sharing yourself and your experience with us. You mentioned Simon Sinek and Tim Ferriss in this presentation. Are there any other specific resources you could share that might help us gain more insights on this subject?
Not that I'm trying to plug my Instagram, but if you guys want to send me an email at fdoceballos@gmail.com or send me a message, a DM on Instagram at fdoceballos, that's my handle. I have a list of books that I've read in the last couple of years, and I'd be happy to take a screenshot of that and send it over your way. There's plenty of books that I really recommend, but I would have to say is, what are some of the topics that you're trying to overcome, whether that be leadership or just overcoming failure or working on building your own personal brand. There's, again, plenty of resources that I can share with you all, but I would just suggest, reach out to me and I'll be happy to share that. But just some of the names that, for those of you who don't have the time to reach out, is Jocko Willink. He has a really good podcast out there, talks a lot about leadership. Gary Vaynerchuk is another individual that I follow, talks about personal branding and just overcoming failure. Joe Rogan is someone that I also follow, and there's also some topics there that they discuss as far as just overcoming certain things. But Tim Ferriss most definitely would be a really good resource. And in following Tim Ferriss, he has a lot of segues in some of the people that he interviews, and that should allow you to kind of go another way. But Tom Bilyeu is another. He has a podcast called Impact Theory. So again, I can keep going on and on and on resources, but if there's something specific that you guys want to hear, feel free to send me an email or follow up on social media.
Okay. Zachary Valdez. He's making a comment. I think adding how people can talk about their failures effectively as a learning moment in job interviews would be crucial for this crowd. So maybe you can think, maybe Fernando, you have a moment where a learning moment in a job interview to share.
Yeah, I think so. It hasn't been specifically in a job interview, but it was for a leadership opportunity that I was trying to go to. And so for me, one of the learning opportunities and failures that I made, I guess it being a SHPE a presentation, is one that I like to share with some people is assumptions. I talked about that being a bad habit. So when I first took on the presidency on the SHPE DFW professional chapter, my leadership style, my assumption was that everybody was needing to communicate a certain way. And so instead of me just asking them on how they wanted to communicate as a group, I made the assumption that people just wanted to communicate on an individual basis and then get together on a bi-monthly manner. And so again, the biggest failure that I made as a leader and the biggest failure that I did was to make assumptions. And so that's one of those things that I share with people is, again, don't make assumptions. I've been very vulnerable in sharing those mistakes, especially with the leadership role that I was trying to run for. I made it very clear to the person that even though I was trying to apply for a leadership role and I was trying to show that I had the capacity and the resources and I was capable in leading this future team, that I had made mistakes in the past, and I was able to learn from those mistakes to really capitalize on not making those mistakes again in the future. So I was just again reaffirming and ensuring them that I wasn't going to make those mistakes with their team because I had already made them in the past. So again, being vulnerable and just letting people know that you've made those mistakes in the past is actually going to help you again, reaffirm in a job interview, or whether that be in a promotion or in a new leadership role, to remind people and I guess let them know that you're emotionally mature because you've made those mistakes in the past, and also that you're capable of having those conversations with your leadership.
Okay. Let's see. For Fernando, please let me know the 3 book titles mentioned in this presentation. I think you shared that already.
Yeah, so it was Start With Why, Simon Sinek, The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and then it escapes me, but it was The Power of Habit was the other book. The author's name escapes me.
Okay. Arturo Velasquez is asking, talking about failure, I avoided to the point on procrastinating or avoiding the subject at all. Can we consider practice the space for failure and improve to avoid a real failure? Or we have to embrace failure is a step for progress?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think you embrace failure as a step for progress, and you put yourself in position to make mistakes in a safe space. So again, I'm not trying to push SHIP, but I'm going to keep pushing SHIP. In me wanting to become a project manager, in me wanting to become a project engineer in my career, I have to feel safe and put myself in position to make those mistakes in leading a team, in leading a budget, in leading a schedule, and again, leading a team in SHIP where the stakes aren't as high and my career isn't on the line. And I've embraced the fact that failure is part of life. And so I make those mistakes in a safe space in SHIP, knowing that those steps and those failures and the habits and the routines that I'm making in SHIP are going to carry over to my career. And that's going to only help me become a better project engineer. And it's only going to help me become a better project manager and just be a better leader in my everyday life, but also be a better leader in my job. So, excuse me, hopefully that answers that question. But yeah, it's both. It's important to put yourself in position to where you can make those mistakes in a safe space, but just knowing that you have to embrace failure as an everyday thing.
Okay, so Fernando, we have 4 minutes left. Do you want to share, just 1 minute of the most, something very significant in this learning space that you want the participants to take away with?
Yeah,
Away with?
I think I'll leave it at this. I have one more slide here. Is remember, it's not that serious. Let it go. And so we talk about, overcoming failures and setting habits and, getting past bad habits. But I think the biggest takeaway is like let it go, right? It's not that serious. We're all trying to achieve so many things and we put this insane amount of pressure on ourselves on wanting to be the perfect version of ourselves and trying to live, our best life. We compare ourselves on social media to people's highlight reels and we think that, we have to look a certain way, we have to make so much money, we have to have a certain title, but at the end of the day, it's not that serious, right? We have to just remember that we're all moving forward, we're all work in progress, and don't beat yourself up if you're not getting to the goals that you're trying to achieve fast enough. And it's not that big of a deal if, other people around you are beating you because you're not playing anybody else's game, you're not running anybody else's race, you're running your own race. And at the end of the day, you're pushing yourself as much as you possibly can. So I think that's the biggest reminder, and I think the biggest takeaway that I want people to take is yes, focus on all these things and remember life isn't that serious. Like just move on. You're gonna get better one day at a time.
Well, there you go, Ship Familia. Please join me in thanking Fernando Ceballos. That was awesome. Bravo. I do want to share Jeffrey Pablo's question. He said, will you please provide us with the recording and slides? I would love to share it with those around me. Remember that you can find all of our webinars on our SHIP National Facebook page. We keep them in a library there. So excellent tips that Fernando shared with us, with our members, including, my favorite which was, waking up early to give yourself time for reflection. That is so important. So Ship Familia, please remember to take our survey. You will receive a thank you email with the survey link after the webinar. We need your constructive feedback to make this program the best it can be. We hope to see you June 26th for webinar number 6, how to be an effective team player. Come join us to find ways to be a stronger team player, to add value to your organization and in your life. Signing off from SHIP National, buenas noches, SHIP Familia.